finish the inducing first and then I'll go to the epidural. So with the induction of labor, that we have a more force being applied to the baby all at once, and if the baby wasn't down low enough to start this on their own, now we're trying to push the baby down into the position quicker than what they should have been, and it's with the harder contractions. There may not be proper cranial molding. Because of that, it may cause the labor to be quicker. So it's definitely not the ideal. Again, as with, there are times when it's necessary, either if the mother's in distress or if the baby's in distress, it may sometimes be needed. The epidural question is actually a really fascinating one. As we've seen a little bit here, and actually if we go back and look whole biochemically, when the baby starts growing inside the mother, it takes over control of the mother's physiology such that it will get everything that it needs. For nutrition, it changes the hormone environment to sustain the pregnancy. It's the baby who's in control. As the baby's in the wrong position, the mom's the one who's in pain. So the baby also, through this, with the contractions, as that causes a sensation of maybe pain in the mother, her body will produce natural pain killer hormones called endorphins that then will course through her blood and will also cross the placenta and get to the baby. And that's sometimes, it's one of the hormones that's referred to that helps to make this whole process work. So when the mother is given an epidural, which blocks her sensation of pain, now she's no longer making these endorphins, and so the baby's not getting them, so his sensation of pain could be higher, as well as the epidural drug itself can also cross the placental barrier, which then in much higher doses than what the baby would have gotten, being much smaller weight than what the mother is. And so that can inhibit some of the baby's first responses. They can be born really drowsy, they may not breathe right away, they may not nurse right away, because basically they're drugged. So again, one of those scenarios, it's not the ideal. We try to avoid it. In certain situations it may be necessary. Yes?
The dance between the baby and the mother, who starts the birth? The mother or the baby?
The question is, in the dance between the mother and the baby at birth, who starts the dance? I think I would have to answer the baby does, because as the baby gets bigger, it's the pressure on the cervix, and that continued pressure then is what stimulates the nerves that start the contractions, which then it's a self-feedback cycle. So I think the baby does, would be my answer.
There's not a hormonal change. There isn't something that develops within the system of the mother baby that says it's time to start.
Then follow-up question, is there a hormonal change that develops in the whole system between the mom and the baby? The oxytocin is the chemical, the hormone that Pitocin mimics, that stimulates contractions. That is present and ready in the mother's body. What happens is that the pressure on the cervix stimulates nerves that send a message up to the pituitary gland, and then the pituitary gland says, oh, we're getting pressure on the cervix. We must have a big baby. I think it's time for birth. And then it releases oxytocin into the system. So the hormonal system is in place, but it is still the pressure from the baby that actually stimulates and starts that.
So the baby is in control.
Yes.
The Bible talks about when Adam and Eve disobeyed God, that there would be a curse on the woman for birth. What do you think that is? Because I've seen pictures of movies of animals giving birth, and it looks like it's a relatively painless process. Do you have any idea from your studies of what that might be? Obviously, there's a problem there if women have a lot of pain.
So the question was that in the fall, part of the curse upon the woman was pain in childbirth. Or, well, actually, did you say that? Okay,
yes.
was the pain in childbirth, and so how do I see that being played out as the curse? That is a good question, and it has been under much speculation. I agree with you. I've wondered that with animals as well. So I think I could see that as part of the curse. I know that there are. Actually, I think I'll just have to say I don't know on that. I also know that we can balance that, though, with, is it Timothy or Titus, that women will be saved through childbearing, which is another question of what exactly does that mean. But so somehow as we put those both together, that even though it's part of the curse, it's also part of our blessing of who we are as women, and that God has given us both of those, and fulfilling that calling is part of how He works his character in us in salvation.
But nothing that you could envision as a structural change in one's body that result in more difficult labor.
Not that I know specifically. Yeah. Other questions?
Okay, let's thank Natalie again.
Thank you very much.